Hey, man, and today I'll be reacting to a video by the Black Pants Legion. Hope I got that name right. This was requested, and this was titled. Oh, this is titled BattleTech 101: The Great Houses of the Inner Sphere. And obviously, I take from the title, this is going to be a brief overview of some BattleTech lore, which I know almost nothing about. I mean, the closest thing I have seen or played was the Mech Warrior games and I played a Mech Commander game, so I know there's book. I also read a book too, a Mech Warrior book, but as far as BattleTech goes, I don't think I've seen any. Like, I've heard of the name, I just don't know the lore. I don't know what it entails. So yeah, this was, like I said, this was requested, and also by the same creator. They had like the Text Talk series, which I looked through the playlist and it had something about the Mad Cat, so I'll probably react to that one for sure in the future. I don't know about the other ones, but I'll try to get to them. I'll try to put it in the rotation, right, between like this Mandalore Gaming and like Warlock Racy and maybe other stuff. So yeah, we'll see about those. But for this one, yeah, the Great Houses of the Inner and the Inner Sphere. So ooh, you have no choice. A basic manual for new Mech Warriors. I mean, I guess technically I am new, because whatever I played in the past, I don't remember. Only thing I remember is the Mad Cat.
Welcome, new Mech Warriors, to the...
Oh, I guess to an extent the video I've seen in the past too about Mech Warrior 2 Mercenaries.
The Inner Sphere, where you can keep whatever money you find so long as you live to payday. For our first lesson, the Great Houses. Slide, please. So the Great Houses are the six, or for people who can actually calculate projection power on an appreciable strategic scale, the four peer states, one remnant, and one hermit kingdom that make up the Inner Sphere. No, it's not a perfect sphere. Yes, there are things outside of it. Today we're talking about these assholes. These are the Great Houses of the Inner Sphere, and they're all very different in varying ways, but are mostly the same, in that they are all occasionally not very nice to each other. They also possess vast arsenals of planet-killing weapons, and on special occasion will trundle them out for public display. If you want to know why the...
I know this is not a one-to-one, but it sure sounds a lot like Naruto. I mean, I'm pretty sure this came out way before Naruto did, but it's very similar.
These people are fighting over such vast territory, and why they're so committed to erasing portions of their collective industrial base, history, and civilization, well, it's complicated. My best take on it is a two-parter, and most people find that a bit much. So let this serve as a basic introduction to your career in the world of Mech Warriors, and a primer on who's most likely to kill you when you inevitably fuck up.
All of them. Every single one will.
But firstly, a disclaimer. I am biased.
Oh.
As a mercenary plying his trade in the Inner Sphere, I find concepts such as warfighting ideology largely a position of what you can cover up from the general public. Mainly because, at the end of the day in the Inner Sphere, it's about you and yours, and smoking craters tell no tales. They make a hell of an autocannon. But to better illustrate my point, let's just dive in. This map is from 3067. Maps from after that are somewhat messed up, for a number of reasons. And on an unrelated note, let's just brush this radioactive ash off here, and there we go. 3067. Don't mind the flickering on the screen, I'm told it's mostly harmless.
Right.
Mostly. Let's begin with the Great Houses themselves. I'll be moving clockwise as we go, for those of you who understand time, and left-hand feed for people who understand timing.
The Draconis Combine and House Kurita.
Welcome to the wacky, weird world of the Draconis Combine. Welcome to a pervasive class system, and home to the galaxy's own homegrown, no-bullshit, sword-wielding, authoritarian samurai ruling class. Oh yes, this place is literally built off pre-spaceflight Terran Shogunate-era Japan. It's
Sounds
a monolithic, all-encompassing bureaucratic machine run on war and conquest that thinks optimal Christmas dinner is, by tradition, fried chicken. They're a fun collection of ideas.
I mean, nothing wrong with fried chicken on Christmas. Or any other day.
Behold, this is their throne room. Take that in. This isn't just for show. This is their military. These are their uniforms. These are their mechs. They fight like this all the time. Yes, those swords are very real and do brutal.
I wonder... I don't know if he's gonna say, like, I wonder, like, what material that's, like... Because I've never seen... In my time, I feel like I would have remembered using a sword in... when I was playing like Mech Warrior or Mech Commander. I've never seen a mech use a sword like that. I mean, obviously it would do brutal work, but the trade-off is that you'll have to be that within range of this, right? Unless if you're gonna throw it, but then I feel like that'll be very, very risky. But yeah, the variety of mechs is so... I don't know. It's so fascinating, and I know that like this was a tabletop as well, so that you can actually like paint the figurine, not figures, but the minifigs.
Work. All right, so back to the guy in the chair. It is frequently a guy in charge of this. So this guy is called the coordinator. He runs the place. There is very little distinction between the coordinator as a person and the Draconis Combine as a whole. When people refer to the dragon in reference to Kurita as a house or a nation, it's interchangeable between the two entities. And no, the Draconis Combine doesn't celebrate the godhood of rulership with divine mandate. However, the coordinator's word carries essentially the same weight within their sphere of influence, so I'd not invite trouble, as Kurita tends to bury its enemies deep, headless, and by the million. They have no issues with troubleshooting in government, as trouble should be shot in the Draconis Combine. And if there is anything to fear from these guys, it's that they believe in a manifest destiny which involves House Kurita controlling everything. The Draconis Combine started as an agreement between two worlds, which was then fed war and conquest through House Kurita's leadership. Kurita has had total control since the beginning, aside from that one cadet branch that one time in the family who was wiped out long ago.
I'm just reminded of like the internet historian video of the Suez Canal. This canal has been fine, except for that one time.
Far as how this thing runs, well, the 5 pillars represent the Draconis Combine. The pillar of gold is the government. The pillar of steel is the military. The pillar of teak is the people. The pillar of ivory is religion, philosophy, zen, and all that crap. And then there's jade, the economy. These 5 pillars of state philosophy are represented in the ministries of state organized through them. For instance, the pillar of steel encompasses the Ministry of War, the Department of Indoctrination, the Bureau of Substitution, the Assembly of the Grand Inquisitor, the Admiralty, the physician staff of the Dragon, and various administration authorities. Speaking of authorities, Draconis Combine bureaucracy tends to be impenetrable to outsiders, impossible to reason with, and largely maintains the status quo. Actual decisions are typically made by people with significant military rank, in the form of military governors appointed to oversee civilian authorities. When in doubt, the decision maker is typically the one with the sword. And if you want to see that sword up close and real fast, you only need to fail to take its bearer seriously, or merely disrespect their presence. Also, they had this
Sounds easy to do.
mercenaries thing for a while. Not my favorite government to work with. Then again, they rarely need mercenaries ever, because the constant fighting and insanity of the samurai class means they're pretty much ready to throw down whenever. If they lack a cause, they'll find one quick.
Oh, jeez.
The leaders of the Draconis military are often peerless warlords, equally at home in local shogunal politics, or on the battlefields of their neighbors. The Draconis Combine is the state that war built, maintained by Bushido, psychotic warriors, and a shitload of weapons. Finding Kurita forces in your backyard is frequently the precursor to speaking Japanese in your near future, whether you want to or not.
Oh yeah, wasn't BattleTech an anime? Like way back in the day? I think that's where I heard it from. Like I wasn't sure if it was like an anime or like just an old cartoon, but I'm pretty sure it was an anime. Like around, was it before Gundam? I don't know, but yeah. But I also know, like I said, I also know it's like a tabletop too, so.
Next door is ruled by House Davion, the so-called good kid of the successor houses. The noble one. The one that likes autocannons a lot. That's these guys.
Wait. The Davion isn't the greatest, but they're definitely trying to be the good guys. I mean, they have what seems to be like a massive territory, so it seems to be doing something right. But it's like this little green here. What is it like? Is this green supposed to be with that green? But somehow they got surrounded or something. It's weird that they haven't taken that. But I mean, I'm sure there's a reason why.
Technically, the state is the Federated Sons, and they're another fun monarchy. House Davion is descended from English and French nobility, operating as constitutionally bound monarchs, and has been, since ever, trying to reinforce their position as champions of liberty and personal freedom at every annoying turn. Because of this, most people think House Davion, and by extension, the Federated Sons, are self-righteous assholes. And they are not wrong. Mostly. But see, the story is a bit funny on that. Originally, the Federated Sons was a federation. In time, the founding polities chose delegates to form a high council who would, among themselves, elect a president to lead them. But the political machinations of the Davion family were all about having a monarchy, so they pushed the presidency into that, and since then, the Davion family has ruled. Which is really good for them. Mostly good for the Federated Sons, and has worked out for the most part. However, Davion...
Yeah, but like, what about everyone else?
Davions being Davions, one had to rule them all. So there was an early Davion civil war. The 5 marches had to decide for themselves who would be the first prince, and sharing was, apparently, not a serious consideration at any point. And the winner of that first early Davion civil war, Alexander Davion, went on to pass more legislation than
one man, one vote. His.
any of his predecessors, because he had total military support. Turns out you can...
Why does that sound familiar?
Make people vote how you want with a bayonet. However, the story doesn't get any worse really for some time at least. To their credit, House Davion was not a despot. They encouraged then and still champion free speech, individual liberties, and personal freedom.
But I mean, I have a feeling he's going to say that if you choose to speak against the leaders, then so long free speech, right? Or they're going to either be punished or something like that.
But in the end, it is a monarchy.
Yeah.
Considering the mostly beneficial ruling arrangement, some will label Davion a father knows best state, which has many times but not always been justified in its actions. As such, it is seen as one of the more stable houses on account of broad public support. I will admit this. Though they can be miserably righteous and annoying, they're frequently not evil, just smug. And yes, that is just as bad. The armed forces of the Federated Sons have historically been one of the most professional militaries in the Inner Sphere.
See, like, I don't know. Like I'm not a fan of like these humanoid looking mechs personally. Like even in the Draconis ones where they had like the more Shogun looking type of that seemed a lot better, or not a lot, but that seems better than this. Like in my personal opinion, in terms of like looks, right? Like performance wise, if it performs better, then it performs better. But I mean, I guess this is why I like the Mad Cat more. It's like one of my favorites because it doesn't look humanoid, but it looks like it's a threat not to be messed with. Like in my opinion. But yeah, I look at these and like, and then I know like the Atlas is like the top tier, at least in the games. It's like a top tier mech, but I don't know. It doesn't look appealing. But I guess looks doesn't really matter if it has enough firepower to dominate the enemy, right?
Originally formed from peacekeepers and always kept as modern as state industries could allow. These guys even developed the predecessors to the Warhammer on their own dime in the earliest years of battle mechs. Even when they're wrong, they're almost right. Davion may not pay you well, but they won't bury you for no reason. Mostly.
Mostly. The Capellan Confederation. Okay.
Next door are these guys. I don't like them as much for a number of reasons. The Capellan Confederation is the youngest kid on the block as successor states go. It's a socialistic police state that has almost but not always been
Are these supposed to be like the Koreans? Because I've seen like Incheon Dam and
under the control of one family, House Liao. The head of the state is the chancellor, who is...
I guess like House Liao doesn't really scream Korean, so...
In the Capellan Confederation,
I don't know.
one nod away from making you disappear. To say that it is a police state is not an act of hyperbole, but substantiated fact. However, it wasn't always so. What started as a collection of states uniting for common defense and well-being slowly grew over hundreds of years through successive generations of philosophy and leadership from one.
So looking at this, it's like, so this is like an amalgamation of Asian culture, whereas the Draconis is just more Japanese, right? Because like it's so interesting of where like the influences for each house comes from.
One house into an autocratic state with a centrally controlled economy. Some would say this is a functional dictatorship, but dictators tend toward having some sort of functional agenda or understanding of strategic power.
Yeah.
But in truth, there's actually three forces that run this place, at least in theory. They are the Chancellor, the Prefectorate, and the House of Scions. The Chancellor is the CIC of the Armed Forces, Special Forces, and the face of the state in matters of foreign policy. The Chancellor can also make decrees and legislative changes at will. It's a powerful position, to say the least, and has nearly always been a lifetime appointment for House Liao.
Something tells me that the lifetime is somehow short if you want to take up this position.
The Prefectorate is the body of state regional entities and greater nobility. The House of Scions isn't, mostly. Needless to say, the Chancellor seems to get his or her way more often than not. But the other two governmental branches will act to frustrate or block particular agendas. What's interesting about the Capellan Confederation is that its citizens, or rather I should say resident aliens born there, are not citizens. Not yet, anyways. In fact, in the Confederation, citizenship must be earned, and the state is the sole measure of that esteem. Children are legally, in every way, wards of the state under limited provisional supervision granted by the government to their parents or other assigned legal guardians. At age 15, each child is thoroughly examined by the government to see if they have a proven commitment to the state. Those who are deemed worthy gain citizenship. Those who are not are given a grace period for a second evaluation, but failure to measure up as a citizen for any reason results in becoming a non-citizen, which are frequently referred to as state servitors. By the Succession Wars, this non-citizen class had become an enormous part of the population.
Gee,
A population
I wonder
that,
why.
unless state, had no rights and was legally state property. This was reversed in 3052 when Sun Tzu Liao became chancellor and abolished servitor slavery. Not all Capellan chancellors are assholes. Most, though, well,
Yeah.
the record speaks for itself.
Just
The military of the
most.
Confederation Armed Forces have traditionally been the underdog, but have never shied away from a fight. They frequently are pushed into doing far too much with far too little, and on top of it have to face the catastrophic political and military meddling of a chancellor who may or may not understand the difference between entertainment and war. The fact that Capellan state has not been conquered outright speaks volumes to the abilities of the CCAF, who have demonstrated battlefield insanity as a doctrine for nearly 8 centuries.
If it works for them, it works, right?
The Capellan economy is centrally planned and is designed on the principle that sufficient planning can overcome any hardship. This has produced mixed results. The Confederate
It's true to an extent, though. I feel like that's true to an extent, because if you planned for a lot of outcomes, then if any of those outcomes appear, then you're prepared for them. But then there's always the fact that you can't plan for every outcome, and it's just the ones that you don't plan for that might be troublesome.
nation always endures, but at what cost?
Free Worlds League.
Next door is the Free Worlds League. I don't
Okay.
say House Marik because, well, it's complicated. Also, their history isn't terrible as some make it out to be. Yes,
Oh?
the greatest threat to a Marik is a Marik, but glory to Marik. But it wasn't
Right.
always so. The Free Worlds League was actually formed before the Terran hegemony, born out of the early Terran Alliance's colonial struggles and then collapse as an early power. Your homeworld falling apart in early colonization was, well, somewhat on the catastrophic end of things. So nations which weathered that catastrophe learned self-reliance. The Free Worlds League was originally an agreement between 3 existing nations, the Marik
Okay.
Republic, the Regulan Principality, and the Federation of Oriente. Amazingly enough, the founders of the League owe most of their success to a guy named George Humphreys, who was the negotiator between the 3 nations and was
Right.
honored as the first Speaker of Parliament for 5 damn sessions.
Oh, jeez.
They didn't throw their negotiator away when they came together as a nation. They threw nobody under the bus. Instead, they championed him. That is
Okay.
righteous. So how'd it go down? You see, of the 3 nations, Marik was on top locally, and Marik didn't like the idea of a union at all. Not at first. He thought it wouldn't work. Working with others seemed like a bad idea, in fact, considering the state of galactic affairs. But Humphreys wore him down, like a good friend does. And the only reason I bring this up is because what wore him down wasn't politics. It wasn't
Oh?
an appeal to power or glory or riches or
So,
conquest or the history
then?
books. It was in fact nerd shit. See, Detlev Marik collected historic awards and trophies. Rasalhague, Prince of Regulus, collected miniatures, figurines
Okay.
mainly, and books and paintings and the like. And these 2 guys nerding out about their neat stuff they liked and had collected contributed as much toward the founding of the Free Worlds League as anything else.
Wow.
Ostensibly, the Free Worlds League is a federal republic, with each province granted a grand measure of self-rule and sovereignty. And as you'd expect, the Free Worlds League is a complex creature, politically speaking. The
Where have I heard that before? Like, so far, it just seems like these are all. I mean, I don't know my political history as well as like another person, right? Because I know some, I just don't remember. I don't remember a lot of it, but it just seems like a lot of these houses are just various real life powers just cranked up to like 11 or something. But I mean, this is from someone that doesn't know the lore of this, right? So I can only compare it to what I know.
Parliament is technically a supreme federal and legislative authority, but there's some caveats to that. For one, membership of the parliament was, for a time, determined by the amount of taxes paid into the treasury. And then there's the self-rule problem. All that self-rule means you have all sorts of people in parliament. Some nations could be dictatorships, others a theocracy, others a democracy, and yet all under one flag.
Right.
Naturally, this causes some problems. It's why, for the most part, the Free Worlds League, through its history, has operated in a near-permanent state of martial law under the Captain General, who is frequently, but not always, a Marik. Historically, the power of the Parliament has waned with every major conflict, crisis, or state of emergency, whereas the power of the Captain General has increased. That's right. The Free Worlds League drops their issues at Marik's welcome mat, rings the doorbell, and runs the fuck home. I don't envy that job. Originally,
so it's not really like free worlds. It's just like it's free up to a point until you have some sort of like disagreement or some sort of thing that you need settled up. But then it's Marik's job, right?
Intended for military matters on behest of Parliament, 8 centuries of emergency powers later, the Captain General stands as first among equals, and is more or less House Marik's personal lordship of the Free Worlds League, with all of the hazards that entails. The Free Worlds League has defined its economic niche through innovative technologies and free trade, which I feel is a response engineered in opposition to the then crumbling Terran Alliance's blanket of tariffs and protective customs laws. The laissez-faire approach to the free world's economic principles has made more friends than enemies. However, poor risk management analysis has caused problems. For instance, after conquering the magistracy of Canopus during the Reunification War, the Free Worlds League invested oceans of currency, industry, and effort into rebuilding the Canopan economy.
We call this the historical effect in regards to Canopus as the house always wins.
Canopus returned the favor by outcompeting and underbidding the Free Worlds League economy in the region, by mostly using principally cheaper labor and lots of industry they didn't have to pay to build. This resulted in a 10-year economic recession for the entire Free Worlds League. No good deed goes unpunished, since they've learned quite a bit, and have managed their economic affairs with care to guard against the systemic mayhem and shock as caused by other states, good intentions or not. Culturally, the Free Worlds League is a mix. In fact, it is probably the most diverse state there is in the Inner Sphere. The principal language is mostly a derivative of Star League English, but on any given world you might hear Czech, Arabic, or Urdu. With the sheer number of cultures and political systems present in the Free Worlds League, it must be said that if there was anything that unified them, it was not a Marik, but more an ideology. And that's entrepreneurship, a belief in the free market, and the idea that anybody can make it if they try. It was from the prosperity of the Star League that this philosophy grew, I feel. The succession wars didn't dampen their spirits either. It merely made them appreciate what they had, and encouraged them to continue fighting for it. And maybe each other from time to time, because hey, we're the Marik.
Snazzy animation.
Next door is the one people make fun of, and for some of the right reasons. Welcome to the Lyran Commonwealth.
Lyran, okay.
First of all, few call it that unless they're declaring war or arranging marriage, which if I'm frank might be the same thing in the same afternoon. So welcome to the House of Steiner. The Steiners are the ruling family and have been since virtually ever.
Do they have their own type of math? No?
Were founded as a merchant and industrialist conglomerate. They never stopped being exactly that. They celebrate their vast wealth by having far too many nobles, far too many noble titles, and historically largely incompetent generals.
Oh, wow.
Save for the occasional flash in the pan, that is. However, if they're strategically incompetent to the point that the concept of their scouting parties operating vastly excessive tonnage, even in modest probing actions, memes based more on truth than you think, then how do they survive, you ask? Well, money and industry, friends.
Wait, did they actually use atlases for just to like scout? I assume this is an atlas, right? Like I don't remember specifically what they look like, but I do remember that it's like it looks somewhat similar to this.
Based more on truth than you think.
And I know they were like
How do
really
they survive,
heavy.
you ask? Well, money and industry, friends. Money and industry. House Steiner's backing is the industrial base and every bank that invested in it.
Oh,
They
geez.
are the military-industrial complex. There are many good reasons they can afford to dump truck weapons into a situation, operational or not, piloted or not, and then continue to do so until the enemy leaves. While not stupendously famous for warfighting leadership or tactical brilliance, House Steiner can and will bury you with its vast assembly lines led by pretend generals until you give up or they get bored. Every tragic comedy of their strategic planning is mostly covered by the sheer power of their pervasive economy and vast military industry. In its early days, the Lyran Commonwealth was headed by 9 archons as patterned off ancient Athens of Terra, because early post-Terran colonies were like that, very idyllic. Then one guy deposed the other 8, decided to establish the Estates General to run the show, and finally hammer out some agreements on what rights meant. And it's kind of worked out. Technically, the Archon of the Lyran Commonwealth is an absolute ruler.
Those mechs are they're a little bit chunky. Or maybe it's just me. Just it's like they have like a big body for some reason.
And it's kind of worked out. Technically, the Archon of the Lyran Commonwealth is an absolute ruler, commander-in-chief of all military forces, and can unilaterally make most governmental decisions with a modest nod. They run the show. They even hold the right to grant and remove noble titles in perpetuity, titles which hold significant power. So they're a ruthless autocrat, right? Not really.
Laugh if you want. These medals were probably once somebody's children. I mean,
most archons of House Steiner, aside from a few notable assholes,
not
who
a
need
nice lady.
extensive covering in what I will likely label a historical diss track, are mostly okay people. They delegate most decisions to the bureaucracy, the councils of state, appointed advisors, and the Estates General, and they typically just keep their heads down, or just go to the Solaris thing. Right. The Solaris thing. So there's a bullseye in the inner sphere in the murder for entertainment business, and it's right here. Solaris 7. This is pretty much Steiner in a nutshell. But I'm not an expert in these matters, so I'll turn it over to a local. He can sum it up better. Mr. Fisher, take it away.
Solaris 7 is the only place where you can pay money to watch 2 strangers beat each other to death, while also enjoying a corn dog.
Duncan, that's not true. Canopus exists. They have corn dogs last I went. And a very good Outback.
I think Canopus banned trans fats, my dude. I've only ever seen funnel cake. Oh, and they do a lot of food on a stick.
I mean, honestly, I don't think I've ever tried funnel cake. But wouldn't that have fats in it as well? But I mean, I compared to a corn dog, I would assume less likely, but yeah, I've never tried funnel cake, so I wouldn't know what that's like.
Saves napkins, less to clean up. Stick food is really the way of the future. I wish we'd thought of it first. Sticks truly are the yardstick of food.
Right.
I'm Duncan Fisher. I stand by this statement. Sticks are the future. Mark my words.
Duncan, this is costing me a fortune.
Oh, right. HPG.
I mean, I'm trying to think, like, foods that have sticks to it always seem more fancy, right? Because, like, you have, like, for example, you got a normal apple, put a stick to it, and then it's a candied apple. Much more fancy and much more sweet. And probably unhealthy. We got corn dogs, and we got, what are those called? Like, I've seen it at Starbucks, like, those donut holes on a stick, donut pops, I think that's what they're called. Like, normally donut holes are really, really cheap for what they are, but then you put a stick on it and it's instantly that much more fancy.
So, Solaris 7. Murder is more or less very legal, so long as you do it in the box on TV, and everyone has a really great time.
Right.
In fact, it's fantastic. There's explosions and music, and I'm there, every night, on every screen. I tell you all the things I think you need to hear, and most of them are very accurate. Very accurate. Anyways, this is Duncan Fisher signing off. And this appearance cost Professor Tex 1,485 C-bills.
Thank you, Duncan. Steiner space is a complex thing. Not good, not evil, just very big. In fact...
So it's like the entertainment district.
I think that the Lyran Commonwealth is much like a cosmic horror. Some giant, blind, idiot god. Just waiting there, happily making money and strudel. Singing merrily to itself until someone comes over and flips the table. And then it becomes very, very upset.
What the heck? Huh. Ooh. You see, like, I would prefer ones that look like this for some reason. I know it's like personal preference in terms of like the looks, and I'm sure they're both equally, maybe not equally, equipped for battle. I mean, aesthetically wise, I think I would choose. Was it the Draconis ones? Yeah, I believe that was my memory's terrible. So yeah, the Draconis ones, let's just look at better. But I concede the fact that looks is not important in terms of mech battles, right? It's all about the armament and the armor and how well it maneuvers and stuff like that. So I get it that looks aren't that important. It's more like what can the mech do and how effective the mech can do what it does. So it is what it is.
Anyways, moving to our right, because space has that, we have to talk about this strip of the hemisphere that's been nothing but hell. We're not talking about these a-holes here, because they're not from here, or rather, not recently. These are the clans, and for those uninitiated, they're a strange, deep space civilization of state-mandated, eugenics program, warrior caste, combat cult weirdos. Even by our standards, they're very weird. They also got completely wrecked by the phone company. It was a pretty okay time. For us, that is. So, here's what remains of the somewhat free Rasalhague Republic. So these guys were a thing, briefly, until these guys decided they shouldn't be. Because they were between these guys and Terra, which is controlled by the phone company, who wasn't cool with these guys taking a bite out of everything on their way to the telecoms HQ for very odd, strangely specific, quasi-spiritual reasons, which for very different, strangely specific, quasi-spiritual reasons, the phone company decided to murder them. Guys, as it turns out, you can make people show up to an ambush by just asking them. Remember, be kind, it pays dividends. Before that unpleasantness, Rasalhague was a state come from the space between House Kurita over here and House Steiner. These Kuritan buffer worlds were, before Kurita came along, an independently free principality of mostly culturally Scandinavian colonists. This small state was then overrun by House Kurita, who had to pry the worlds from them after 30 years of guerrilla warfare. They didn't go quietly. They were always a somewhat fiercely independent border region who resisted assimilation into the Draconis Combine. Over time, and some phone company intervention, Theodore Kurita was convinced of the benefits of creating a buffer zone between the houses of Steiner and Kurita by granting Rasalhague independence. Some of Kurita's guys were so mad at this that they resisted the government, and Kurita had to fight what was called the Ronin War. After Old Man Kurita gave his rowdy warriors the belt, Rasalhague became essentially a neutral buffer between the two superpowers of House Kurita and House Steiner. They were independent for almost 2 decades before these assholes came in, and in the end, they weren't anymore. This much of them survived as a rump state under the custodianship of Comstar until 3070, when Clan Ghostbear more or less took them in. Because Ghostbear is of a similar cultural background and understands the importance of family. Good people mostly. Kinda clingy though. For the record, Rasalhague was not a paper dragon. They collapsed only after fighting bravely in the face of overwhelming odds.
I think that
They
was
gave
yeah,
the
was on the
clanners a
right.
hard fight on every world, and in the deep black between stars. It was a
I'm just gonna think all the ones that look like that are atlases. the overbearing, menacing, with like a dome head.
collapsed only after fighting bravely in the face
That's
of
what I
overwhelming odds.
remember about
They
it.
gave the clanners a hard fight on every world, and in the deep black between stars. It was a Rasalhague pilot who kamikazed the Okan's warship and stopped the invasion for a
Oh
year.
wow.
Rasalhague
A
is
year.
like that. They'll smile all day, but fuck around and the Viking comes out, and it doesn't stop until
jeez.
you or they are very, very dead. Next up, I have to talk about this. This was once the cradle of humanity, but it's been a hotbed of a lot of historical issues. Originally, the first circuit of what was called SL Comnet was laid out in this chunk of space once called the Hegemony. Then, well, there was this guy named Jerome Blake, and as fate would have it, he'd be the last employee of SL Comnet. But some assholes in time would think that everything that poured out of his goddamn mouth was the word of
Comstar regrets to inform. Wait, what? Comstar regrets to inform you of this technical difficulty. Broadcast will resume in redacted form.
Right, so I guess next time I have
Right.
to talk about the periphery, then the deep periphery. Great. Goat, play me out. Team, show these people how we pay our bills. See you next time. Stay safe.
But there's like so much left.
Oh, far away from the light of terror, the
Is this all
of
credits?
another era to the
Wow.
brew. Grab a brew, it's a
Okay.
damn
Hopefully the song doesn't get claimed, but
pirates, cultists, rednecks,
Greatest
dopest
and Steiner
girls
most generous
with
people,
great
okay.
ladies join the crew. Grab a brew,
that was
it's a
interesting.
damn
Very
periphery.
informative.
We're stuck in the periphery. Oh,
It's like if this is just
too much tech to
like if this is just the very basics, because like there's I'm sure each house has its own lore that I mean this is just surface level lore, and it can just go deep, I would assume. But as with a lot of tabletop stuff, like the lore can go really deep. But yeah, this was informative. Very, like I said earlier, it's fascinating. Like to someone that doesn't know much about it, like me, like the parallels that it has with real life counterparts and real life powers, right? So it's interesting to see where the inspiration was taken from.
be found here, at least it's not the inner sphere, far away.
That
far
one guy
away,
who punched the
out
moon.
in the deep periphery, far away, far
Right.
away, out in the deep periphery.
I assume these are
There's
like the
bandits, knights,
Patreon
bandit
credits,
countries,
and those are like the
Vikings,
Patreon
duelists,
levels,
murder
maybe?
junkies, out
Producer,
south,
co-producers?
noble suck, get out of
I would assume.
Just bring your armies, bring your treasure, we'll drain it all at our own leisure.
There's a
Right away,
lot.
far away, in the deep.
So I don't want to skip it just in case that there's like something. If there's like something notable. I mean, it does seem like it's just Patreon credits compared to like internet historian ads, right? Whereas that's like it's its own entertainment.
Solo.
Oh, not the solo. Yeah, like I said, very interesting video, very informative. And like I said, I've never seen videos from this creator before, so yeah. Thank you for the recommendation. And like I said, I saw a video that goes into the Mad Cat, so I do want to react to that one in the future, just because that's like the mech I liked back when I played like Mech Warrior 2 and around that era. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Get the fuck out.
Oh, another song.
If it were done when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly.
People
If the
who give me money
assassination could
expect no
trammel up the
reason.
consequence, and catch with his Cersei success, that but this blow might be the
There's
be-all
so
and the
many,
end-all.
so many
Here.
backers. Wow.
But here, upon this
Like,
bank
that's
and shoal
amazing.
of time, we jump the life to come. But in these cases, we still have
And
judgment.
it seems like this creator's just
That we but teach bloody instructions, which, being taught,
it's more
return to
focused
plague
on
the
the
inventors.
BattleTech series.
This even-handed justice commends
I know,
the
like, other-
ingredients of
other
our
creators are,
poison
like,
chalice to our
more-
own lips.
More of
He's
a
here
variety
in
ones.
double
This one
trust.
really is more
First,
centered
as
into
I
the
am his
BattleTech
kinsman
stuff,
and his
which is
subject,
nice. Which is nice.
strong both against the deed. Then as his host, who should against his murderer shut the door, not bear the knife myself. Besides, this Duncan hath borne his faculties so meek, hath been so clear in his great office, that his virtues will plead like angels, trumpet-tongued, against the deep damnation of his taking off. And
Right.
pity, like a naked newborn babe, striding the blast, or heaven's cherubims, horsed upon the sightless couriers of the air, shall blow the horrid deed in every eye, that tears shall drown the wind. I have no spur to prick the sides of my intent, but only vaulting ambition, which o'erleaps itself and falls on the other.
Oh, there's only 3 people.
Shitpost achieved. Now
Wow.
where's my scotch?
What a track.
I know I should probably make a Capellan joke about awards in the military, but they typically retire people by millimeters before they become politically hazardous by degrees. There are now 6 BattleTech jokes.
6. Anyways, yeah, that was BattleTech 101, The Great Houses of the Inner Sphere by the Black Pants League. Right? Legion. I want to think of League for some reason, but the Black Pants Legion. So, like I said, very informative, very interesting, and I don't know if I'll probably get to it over time. It's just like I said, I'll put it into the rotation and see what happens. But yeah, unless if there's like some specific ones that people would recommend for the text talks, I'm definitely gonna check out the Mad Cat one. So, yeah, just like some of it's all varying in lengths too. So, anyways, hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, thank you for watching and have a nice day.